All right, let's start over here. We are on page 18a, Yud Ches Omer Aleph. And we're continuing to explain the Mishnah about the different things and the exemption for certain exemptions for doing work on Chayil HaMoyed. Now we're in the middle of the explaining the Mishnah. So now we're going on to Ve'elu mechapsin b'moyed. The following are permitted to wash, launder during the holiday, during Chol HaMoed. And one of them is Habo Mimedinas Hayam, one who comes from overseas. Came from overseas, he didn't have a chance to wash before. He can wash in Chol HaMoed. He can do laundry in Chol HaMoed. So now the Gemara brings down that Omar Rabasi, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabasi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, another exemption. He says, Mi she'ein loy elo choluk echad, one who has only one shirt. So, what are you going to do? Mutar lechapsei b'choylei shel moyed. If it's one shirt, you can wash in a Chol HaMoed because that's all what you have what to wear. So we can't stop you from washing it on Chol HaMoed. Wash your shirt on Chol HaMoed. So the Gemara says, but this is something which the Mishnah didn't mention. Rabbi Yochanan, this is mentioned by Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan is an Amoida, but since the Mishnah didn't allow for that, how could Rabbi Yochanan allow for this? He quotes the Mishnah. Let's see what the Mishnah said. Mosiv Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked a question. Elu mechapsin b'moyed habo b'medinas hayam. Over there it says those are the ones that can wash Chol HaMoed if you come from overseas. And then Rashi over here gives you the other cases that it says over there. In the Mishnah, it says, mitpachas yadayim. We also allow you those hand towels. Rashi says, mitpachas yadayim, shem nagvim bahem yadayim. You can also wash them because they become disgusting. So we allow you to wash them. Also, umat pachas hasaporim. Those are the cloths of the barbers in which they collect the hair. That's the Mishnah. So this is quoting from the Mishnah. The blue is what Rashi is explaining. These are Rashi's, but we don't have it in our Gemara. Our Gemara just says chulu, etc. So Rashi is explaining some of the things that are in the etc. in the mitpachas yadayim. Then you have mitpachas haspoig. Svoig is like bath towels. Pachas hasvoig is Rashi. Shemnagbin bahen atzmam ksheyotzi mebeis hamerchatz. Those that you use to dry yourself when you go out of the bathhouse. So the bigger towels. You're allowed to wash those too. And the Mishnah says, the Zovim, this is all quoting of there, the Mishnah as well. Let's see. I don't know how I got here. I jumped over there, maybe because it linked it.
Oh, well, we can go back to 18A. Right.
Because when I went to this number 4 here gives me a whole different page. You see, it's dangerous with a link system that doesn't really work properly over here. It's not really, I don't know, but in any event, I need to get back to my place. 1 second.
18B. Are we on A or B?
Um, this the end over here, we're talking about I don't know, this number 4 here is and there's a little bit makes me a problem here. But anyways, let's go back. The Rashi, V'sha'olu metumasa, and those that became pure during the Chol HaMoed, so they're allowed to wash their garments. Basically, this is just enumerating those who are entitled to wash their garments on Chol HaMoed. But none of this mention over here about someone who only has one shirt. Rabbi Yochanan says if you have one shirt, you also can wash it. But in all of these that we mentioned, nobody talks about if you only have one shirt. So how come Rabbi Yochanan, that's our question, how come Rabbi Yochanan doesn't, how come the Mishnah says everything else you can wash? It doesn't say if you only have one shirt. So the Gemara, Hani in, these yes, those that the Mishnah mentioned, yes, that's okay. But Misha ein lo yalacholuk echad loy. But if you only have one shirt, no, it doesn't say that. Why do you say one shirt you can wash? So he said no. That was the question that Rabbi Yirmiyah asked on Rabasi, who said the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Amar lei. So Rabbi Yankiv to Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Yankiv says to Rabbi Yirmiyah, Azbar aloch. Let me explain it to you. It says, Masnisin, our Mishnah is talking about Afal Gavdi Isle Trey, in a case where he has two. Umitanfi, and they got dirty. These cases that the Mishnah allows is not talking about a case where you have one. It's talking about even if you have two. But if they are dirty, in those cases, we allow you these exceptions. But if you only have one, then we don't even have to talk about it. For sure you can. The Mishnah is not contradict us. The Mishnah is talking about even if you have multiple shirts, but if you have a special condition, we're going to allow you to wash it in Chol HaMoed. But if you don't even have a shirt, you only have one shirt, then it goes without saying. Masnis in the Katan elu mechapsin, that it tells you that the following could wash their clothes is afal gavdi isle trei umitanfi. It's talking about even though he has two, but they're dirty, and still under this situation you're allowed to. Avul misha ein lo elo choluk echod, but one who just has one shirt, the kula al mishari, according to all opinions, that should be okay. There should be no problem. So it's not a contradiction from the Mishnah. Just the Mishnah isn't talking about this extreme case where you only have one shirt. One shirt you're allowed to. If you have more than one shirt under those cases, under those extreme cases, you'll be okay.
You would think that it doesn't make a difference how many
The
shirts he
Gemara gives
has.
another ruling by Rabbi Yochanan. Sholach Rabbi Yitzchok bar Yaakov bar Giyuri. Rabbi Yitzchok, the son of Yaakov, son of Giyuri, Mishmei Rabbi Yochanan, named Rabbi Yochanan. Clay pishton. That means garments made out of flax, linen garments. Linen garments are considered easy to wash. Clay pishton, Rashi says, the leinofish tircha. It's not a lot of trouble to wash them. Mutar lekofsam b'choyle shel moed. You're allowed to wash them chol moed. Guess linen are easy to wash. It's okay to wash them, as opposed to woolen garments. Masiv Rava. So again, Rava is going to ask a similar question. How come the Mishnah didn't mention this allowance of linen garments? It tells you all other kinds of allowances, but does not tell you about an allowance of linen garments. Why does the Mishnah not say that? Mosiv Rava. So Rava asks, it says in the Mishnah, mitpachas hayadayim, whether it's towels that you use for the hands, or mitpaches hasaporim, or it is the cloth used by the barbers. They are all mitpaches hasaporim shel pishton, and they're made out of linen, out of flax. Those are flax kinds of logs. The Mishnah said you can use that, but that means hani in clay pishton loy. These, yes, okay. But other plishta, no. Avos sharklei pishtan loy, but other than loy. So how would you allow all flax garments? Because the Mishnah specifically said if it's the barbers, which is made out of linen, but not all others. Amar lei masnisi nafilu dishar miniv. That the Mishnah is talking about the barber. He's talking about other kinds. Flax, we're not even talking about flax, that's for sure. If you have cloth of other kinds, we're still going to allow it if it's a barber. Kigoin, for example, the tzemer, if you have made out of wool, that aval gav, the nofish tirche, even though it's a lot of trouble, shori lekapes, it's still permissible to wash them. Aval shar kelim de shar minim loy. But other kinds, no, only for the barber, this kind. Avol kli pishton, but garments made out of linen, shari lekabis, you're permitted to wash. So he says that it doesn't apply to linen garments. Linen garments are easier to wash. It's not a big trouble on chalamoyed, so it's okay to wash linen garments. Omar Bar Hidya. So this Bar Hidya said, Lididi chozi liyomo shel Tveria. I saw, he's saying, I saw that from the river of Tveria, the Bapkile Mashikli, the money that they actually collected, they took out like buckets full of kisna. Kisna is cotton. Bechula de Moed on Chola Moed. So I guess I don't know exactly. So what is he trying to say? I say And I guess they did a lot of work. Uh, um, I guess they were washing their clothing. Their kisna is cotton, actually. It's like the linen clothing, and so they were all bathing. They're washing their clothing over there, um, and they were doing a lot of baga. They were washing, I guess, a lot of clothing. He was sort of trying to bring a proof, I guess, that those garments, that if it's moni kisna, if it's kisna clothing, it's okay. And chalamayit, but matkiv lo Abaye challenged it. So he says, "Man leimalon de beratzon chachamim abdi." Who says that the chachamim wanted them to do that? So you don't have a proof the fact that they did it. They used they dilma shaloi b'rtzon chachamim abdi. Maybe they didn't do it with the will of the chacham. Okay, now we have the next Mishnah talking about writing on Chol HaMoed. Mishnah says the Mishnah ve'elu koisvin b'moed. The following one can write during the Chol HaMoed. So first thing we have is kiddushay noshim, the betrothal of a woman. One of the ways, we give a ring to betrothal, but one of the ways is also writing in a document. Shakosa bishtar, you write in a shtar, hareat mukudeshes li, and that helps why the isha niknes bishtar, a woman can be acquired through a document, either through a gift, a ring, or a monetary, or through a document. So you can write a document to betroth a woman. Also, vigitin, a get you can write on Chol HaMoed as well. And also, v'shoivrim, a receipt. If you pay back a loan, get a receipt. You can write that. Daitike. What's a daitike? Daitike is a last will and testament. You're writing a tzavoah. You're writing looking for the word. No, before you die, you tell your children a will. A daitikim. Okay, so it's a will. Matana, or you're giving a gift. You can write a gift to give somebody a gift in a document. Or prusbulin. Prusbulin is, that you write, Rashi says, Shekoisa milve bishtar, you write down the loan in a document. If the loan is documented, she'enoi mishamit, you say that it's not going to cancel out with the Shemitah year, is not going to cancel the loan. So Shemitah will then not cancel that loan if you write a prusbul, which is, I guess you give it over to Beis Din. That's the way we do the prusbul. Igrois shum, these are letters of evaluation. Rashi explains that, let's say brothers split, so they want to value how much did one brother get. They agree, you get this field. How much is it worth? So that's called an igrois shum, a letter of evaluation. Bekach shamu Beis Din sodazu. This is how much Beis Din evaluate. The value of this field that you get is such. V'nosnu la'achim kach v'kach negdoi. So they give the other brothers such and such to correspond to what he got. He gets the field worth 1,000. The brothers get 1,000 to correspond to what he got. Then you have ivgrois mozin. Those are letters of feeding. That is when you get married and your wife has a daughter and you undertake to feed her, to support her, the wife's daughter. So that would be igris mozin, for food. Ploini kibelos and bas ishte, when this individual accepted to feed his wife's daughter, that would be the letter. Shtori chalitzo miyunim. That's when the brothers, when they die, her husband dies without having any children, and the brother doesn't want to want to marry her, yibum here, he gives her chalitza. Or sometimes, if a young girl, the father and the mother and the brothers betroth her, and she has a right when she becomes, or they marry her off to this guy, but when she gets an adult, she can refuse without a get. That's called miyun. And those are documents that she, either the chalitza or miyun. And then you have shtori birurim, where Bezdin sorted out. They gave one portion to one person, another portion, shtori birurim, biru bezdin, chelik zelazeh, bechelik zelazeh. They gave one portion to one person to the other person. The other thing is Gzeiras Bezdin, the decrees of Bezdin. The Bezdin rules, write down what the ruling was. Piskei dinim, those are the rulings of the din. And the Igros Shel Reshus, these are letters of the government. And those are Igros Shel Reshus, Tzivui V'Kiyum Shel Shifton, the command, the instruction, and the fulfillment of the government. These are all the various different letters. Okay. Gemara. Amar Shmuel, says Shmuel, Mutar la'aris isho b'chayla shemayid. You are permitted to betroth a woman on cholamayid. It's like an acquisition. It's like a business deal because you're acquiring a wife, or in this case, kiddushin. You can do it on cholamayid, and the reason you can do it, shema yikat menu acher, because if you don't do it, somebody else will come before you. So while we wouldn't worry maybe, but we're afraid you might lose the deal because another person is going to take her first. Okay, we'll see. The Gemara is going to have a whole discussion about theirs. Do we really worry about that? We'll see in the Gemara in a minute. But first, the Gemara says, Leima Messiah, can we say that we have a support to this Shmuel's? We have a Mishnah that supports this that Shmuel said, because it says ve'elu koisvin b'moyed. This is you can write on the yontiv on cholamayid kiddushin noshim. That's what we just read in the Mishnah. The first thing was kiddushin noshim, areat mekudeshesli. So you see that you can be makadesh a woman on cholamayid. So this is a support from the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, "My love, shtori kiddushin mamish." Does it not mean what it means that you write kiddushin noshim? Means the actual document hariat mekudeshesli. And the Gemara says, no, we're talking about shtori psiktor. We're talking about documents of decisions of payments. They write down what they're going to gifts give each other for the marriage. Rav Gidl says in the Marav that you take shekoisef tnaize bishtar. He says that you write the document that you make up when you get engaged. You write it down. That's what the Mishnah is talking about, not talking about actually irusin. So we don't have a proof from the Mishnah. The Omer Rav Gidl Marav, because Rav Gidl said the name of Rav. The person the parents of the children are talking to each other, so they have a discussion. So he says, how much are you giving to your son? They're getting married. What are you giving? What are you contributing to the marriage, to your son? So he says, kach v'kach, such and such. Then he asks him, how much are you giving for your daughter? kach v'kach. And they just had a discuss, and amdu v'kitshu, so they made the kiddushim, konu. That is a good kinyan. Good kinyan. Hein advorim haniknim ba'amira. These are one of the matters that you can just acquire just by saying you commitment, and then you go and you can write it down in a document. That's what it says in the Mishnah. Kiddushin Oshim, it means that. It means it's not talking about it. It's talking about the decision how much, but not who says we don't have a proof that you can actually write the Kiddushin in Chol Hamoed. So what brings another proof? Lema Messiah lay. I'll bring another proof. It says, Ein noisim noshim b'moed. You don't marry women. You can't marry on Chol Hamoed. It says loy besulois v'loy almonis. Whether they're first time getting married or they're widowed, can't get married on Chol Hamoed. V'loy v'yabmim, and we also don't do yibum, marrying his levirate marriage when brother died without children. Don't do it. Why? Because it's a happy occasion. We don't want to mix the holiday joy with the joy of marriage, and therefore we say no marriage on Chol Hamoed. But the Gemara says Hola Aris Shari, so this should tell us can't marry, but to betroth, to make Yerusim, that should be okay. And the Gemara says no. Loi mi boyi kamer. It goes without saying. We don't have a proof from here. Loi mi boyi, the la'aris. It goes without saying that to betroth, the lokovid mitzvah, you're not doing a mitzvah. There's no mitzvah. Marriage is a mitzvah. Betrothal is just a preparation for the mitzvah. Marriage, you're going to have children, and that's mitzvah perivirivya. But erusin is not the mitzvah. So the Mishnah says like this: it goes without saying that you're not allowed to betroth because you're not doing a mitzvah. But even to marry the kovid mitzvah, that you're doing a mitzvah, because Rashi says the Isaac perivirivya, still also it's still prohibited. So we don't have a proof that you're allowed to make erusin. Gemara says Tashma, I'll bring a proof because there's a very clear brisa that says the Tona Devei Shmuel, they learned in the yeshiva of Shmuel that me'arsim avaloi koinis. It says very clearly, you can betroth, you can't marry on Chol Hamoed. Ve'ein oisim sudas erusin, but you don't make a party, an engagement party. V'loi miyabmin, and you don't do yibum, v'pnei shesimcha hiloi, because that would be a joy, and we don't want to mix the joy of the own simcha with the Yom Tov. So we shmami no. It says clearly that you can engage. But the reason why Shmuel says you better quickly make the betrothal. Somebody might catch you, go ahead of you. Did then Shmuel say that you worry maybe somebody else might come quicker than you and take her away? But didn't Rabbi Yehuda say the name of Shmuel? That every day and day there is a voice that comes out and says, Bas Ploini LePloini. This daughter of this man will go for this guy. So it's Bashert, or Soda Ploini LePloini, the field of this person to this person. So what are you afraid that somebody else might come before you? It's if it's yours, it's destined for you.
Because it's Chol Moed and they couldn't write it down.
It couldn't what?
They couldn't write it down. So
What
they
could
heard if someone heard the boss call, but they didn't write it down, then
right
there could
now?
be a conflict.
Okay. So basically the Gemara's question is if it's destined for you, nobody's going to take it away. Why should we allow you to uh, do the engagement? And the Gemara says, Elo Shema Yikadmena Achad Berachamim. Somebody, not it's maybe somebody else will come ahead of you with mercy. Ask Hashem to give it to him. It could be davening for Hashem to give it to him. The Gemara relates, it's not that you're going to grab, if it's not yours, you're not going to get it, but you might pray to Hashem, and then Hashem will give it to you. Gemara says, Keho, the Rove, it was a story, Rove Shama Lahu Gavra. You heard this person, the boy Rachmi Omar. He was asking Hashem, Rachmim, the Rachmonis, it says, Tizamen li planisa. Please have this girl, this woman, for me. Amalei. So Rava said to that person that was davening that he should have this woman for him. He says, don't daven so. That's not a good way to daven. If she is fit for you, she won't go from you anyways. But if she's not meant for you, kafarta b'Hashem, then you're going to be denying Hashem. What does Rashi says? Because ba'amona in your belief by duka amar, because you're going to say, if she's not meant for you, your prayer isn't going to help. But then you're going to be denying Hashem because your belief, because you'll say, loy mesayetz loy klum, because my prayer doesn't help. But look, it didn't help. But it says, hayil v'loy mezamnali. You're going to come and deny that Hashem helps you because you're going to say, how come, I prayed to Hashem for this woman and it didn't come true. You'll say, Hashtat salina lo, I prayed for her, it didn't help. So basically, you don't have to pray, or if it's going to be yours, it's going to be there anyways. And if not, you're praying, you're going to come to saying that prayer don't work because it didn't happen, it didn't help you. So Bosar Hachi Omar. But afterwards, he heard that he was praying. He said like this, Omar, if I'm not going to marry her, either she shall die before me, so or she should die before me. Either I should die before her. He didn't want to, or she should die before him, because he was so set on this woman that he said either I should die before her, or she should die before him. Before she gets to the other person. And he says, and that's why you should do somebody may pray that for her to die so that you don't get it. He doesn't, you don't know. So when we say Yikadmena Achar is so that nobody should pray that the girl should die, because he's going to want her, he wants to marry her, and she's going to go to you then he's gonna lose out. Amalei, so he said to him, Lav amin loch loy tiboyi Allah de milsa hachi. Didn't I tell you, don't ask on this thing in such a way uh, that's not proper. So again, I'm right. So he said to her, let's just see it again. He heard him praying. What did he say? He says, if I'm not going to marry her, let her die before me, so I shouldn't have to see her marrying somebody else, or I should die before she gets married to this other guy. He just doesn't want to be around. If he can't have her, he wants her to die or he die. But he just doesn't want. He doesn't want to see her marry this other guy. He's praying to Hashem, kill me, I should die, or she should die. He doesn't want to see her. So we're worried that maybe we're letting you go ahead and engage her so that there should be nobody praying for her to die before she becomes engaged. I guess after engagement is too late already. But that way, to protect yourself. But he said, don't pray for this. So the Gemara brings other statements about this idea that people are meant for each other even before there's just they're destined. Omarav Mishum Reb Reuven bar Starbuli. So he said in the name of Reb Reuven bar Starbuli that this comes min ha-Torah, umin ha-Neviim, umin ha-Ksuvim, from the Torah, from the prophets, and from the writing. That we see this. That Mahashem Isha Ish. That this is from Hashem, that that woman is for the man. And he enumerates. Min ha-Torah. Where is my Torah diksiv? Vayan lovan ubsulo vayomeru Mahashem yotzadover. So when they were trying to make the shidduch with Rivka and Yitzchak, Eliezer is coming. So Lavan and Besul said, Hashem Yotzadova, this is destined from Hashem. So you see that it's Hashem, Ishalish comes from Hashem. That's Minatoyre, Minanevim, and the prophets Diksiv. Va'ovi v'imo lo yodu ki ma'Hashem hi. His father and mother didn't know that this is from Hashem. But the truth of the matter is, Shimshon was supposed to marry with a Palestine woman, with a Isha Plishtis. So his parents were upset about it, but they didn't realize that this Hashem was from Hashem. You see that this is from Hashem. Minaksuvim in the Kesuvim, in the writings, they see because it says, Bais v'hoi nachlas ovis, a house, unfortunately, you get inheritance from your parents. But Uma Hashem isha maskelos. But a woman who is smart, that comes from Hashem. So you see that the wife's from Hashem.
I mean, it's interesting concept, but in none of this case, in our cases, you don't know if that was the shirt that got intended. I mean, you can't say it's got to work because that's my shirt. Maybe that wasn't what God was planning. Well, unless we hear this boss call, we don't know that that's actually right.
I guess after the fact, we know what it's meant to be. I mean, we don't know.
By your 50th wedding anniversary,
the process, we don't know. Yeah. So since the Gemara brought some statements, the Gemara is going to be another statement from Somebody says it says Masnisin in a Braisa that Omar Rab Reuven ben Itztarbuli. It says, Ein Odom Nechshad B'Dover A person would not be suspected on a matter unless he did it. In other words, if there is suspicion, that means you did it. Wait a minute. The imloy also kulu, even if you didn't do the whole thing, also miktsasa, you did a little of it. Wait. The imloy also miktsasa, even if you didn't do any of it, hider believe so you had in mind, in your heart, you were thinking to do it. But the imloy hider believe even if you didn't even think it, you saw other people doing it, and you were happy for them. In other words, he wants to say, if you become suspected of something, you have something to do with it. It's not like totally foreign to you. Did part of it, thought of it, want to do, or at least saw somebody else do it. Okay, that's what he says. Mostly Rabbi Yaakov. So Rabbi Yaakov says, I'll challenge this. It says over there in the pasuk, "Vayechapu b'nei Yisrael el dvorim asher lo kain al Hashem elikeim." Vayechapu means that they sort of came about and they covered. They were making up stories, basically. Ashaloikein. They were saying things that weren't true about God, their God. So they were suspecting Hashem, which wasn't true. But here we're saying, if you suspect somebody, it must be something there. So if they were suspecting Hashem, does it mean that there's something to their suspicion? And the Gemara says, no. But they're hosam lahachisu the avids. They did it to spite Hashem. In other words, the hachis of yadla, they know it wasn't true. We're talking about a person who's suspected that people think that it's true. Over there, they didn't think about what they thought about Hashem is true. So it says, Toshma, I'll bring you another question. So Gemara says, Vayikanu leMoshe b'machane la'arin kedosh Hashem. There is the law, there's the law of soita. A person warns his wife not to go into seclusion with another person. And if she does, then there's the whole process of the soita. They all, as the Torah discusses. So all the people, it says, Vayikanu leMoshe. And tell them, what does it mean, Vayikanu leMoshe? All the men they wanted to get back at Moshe. Can you imagine? So each one told their wives, don't go into seclusion with Moshe Rabbeinu. That means Vayikanu leMoshe b'machne. Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak Amar Melamed shekol echad kined leishtoi meMoshe. So that means that they suspected Moshe Rabbeinu. If you're saying anybody who's suspected has some connection to it, so that means that Moshe had some connection to it. And the Gemara says, no. Hasam mishum sino David. They did it out of hatred. They spied it. They wanted to get back at Moshe Rabbeinu. Can you imagine? So they were mekana their wives. Wow. I'm sure what Moshe Rabbeinu had to deal with. It's interesting. It says shekol echad. Everyone. Who's this everyone? It's Toshma Omer Rabbi Yosi. Well, in the Braisa, Rabbi Yosi said, it's your question. He says, yeah, hey Chelki, let my portion be. With someone who you suspect him, but it's not true. In other words, let them suspect me. But Papa said, they suspected me and it wasn't true. But here we're saying that if they suspect you, it must be a little true there. There's some truth over there. And the Gemara says, like Kashi, it's not really a problem. Because Hobikolo the Posik, if it's suspicion but then it stops. They stop, it's not, the rumor ends. So then, then it doesn't have to be by him. If it's a coil doesn't stop, then then it means that something there, he has some connection to it. How long does it have to be this, if you're saying the rumor that doesn't stop? My mother told me, his mother who raised him told him, Dumi de Mosa, if it's a suspicion of the city, Dumi Rashi Zachshad, Kimalisa Bas Doima. So if it's the Mosa Yoimu Palgo, it's a day and a half. That is mean that it's continuous, means it's a day and a half. But the Gemara says, "V'hani mili delay posak beni beni." It's only if it did not stop in the middle. It's a continuous day and a half. Avo posak beni beni. But if in the middle it stopped, leislambo, then it does not considered to be continuous. V'chi posak beni beni. And if it stopped in the middle, it only helps lo yamoron el leposik machmasira if it didn't stop, because people are afraid. Like they stop talking because they're afraid. Avoposik machmasira, but if it stopped because of fear, loy, that's not considered stopping. Stopping only would be if it's just stopped. But if it was stopped out of fear because of the person, he's going to explain, then it doesn't apply. Lo yamoron elad lehoder novat, and even if it stopped, it doesn't start over again. Aval hoder novat started again, then it doesn't. It's not considered like it stopped. Rashi aval hoder novat zok Rashi aval hoder novat zok Rashi that the boss of the posik hilschil covered his chil color. After it stopped, it started again. And Rashi explains the word novit, nishma. Dibyon, kemoy b'mesachet tainis, high, like similar to what we find in Mesachet Tainis. High turbim rabona domo lipar tzida de tusa kola. Kivon the novat. He is similar to what does it mean over there? That's talking about a turban rabona as is growing. Pardizzo di tusicolo, that's a seed or something that is under a heavy stone in the beginning. It seems like it doesn't have a way to burst out. But once it starts to break out, nothing is going to stop him. He's going to go through and he's going to develop. So the word novat, the Rashi wrote novat, it grows again, meaning it's just Pirush Zev is there, Loshen Tzemach. In both cases, Hodar Novat over there means it grows. If it bursts out, if it grows, meaning if the voice returns. And we only said Leslie Oivim. When do we go by the voice and we say if he doesn't have enemies and there's still a voice, then we suspect. Aval Isli Oivim, but if a person has enemies, then we don't believe. Aval Isli Oivim, if he has enemies, Oivim Udavke Lekolo. It's the enemies that gave made the rumor. They bring out the rumor. So that's not a rumor that we can go by. Okay, let's leave it over here today. And we'll start tomorrow, Mr. Hashem, the next Mishnah. We'll take it from there.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay. Thanks for joining. Have a good night, Ron.
Good night.
See you next week in Mr. Shem.
Thank you.